the way that I kind of explain it is I see your repeats and referrals as the icing, right? It is the extra, it's the gravy, but your marketing is the cake.
Hello, welcome to episode 59 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are joined by Jess Lenouvel, founder of the Listings Lab. With 13 years as a real estate agent herself and growing her business to more than $300 million in property sold in under 5 years, she now focuses on helping six-figure agents double their revenue without sacrificing their lifestyle. Throughout our conversation, Jess shares her tips and advice for scaling your business to the next level. Now, before we get on to the day's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Also, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Click the bell to get notifications when each new episode is uploaded. And lastly, if you or somebody else on your team has an awesome story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to the day's featured interview with founder of the Listings Lab, Jess Lenouvel. I've included links to her website and social media pages in the episode description. Just kind of getting started out a little bit, can you tell me, who you are and where you're at in the country?
Absolutely. So I am actually right now located in Toronto. I typically go back and forth between Toronto and California a lot, obviously less recently because of COVID.
Right.
But actually my husband and I are moving to the Bahamas in January. So I'll give you like the 2-second background.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was an agent myself for about 14 years. I got my license really young. Mom was in real estate, has been in real estate for 35 years. So I grew up in the industry and then got my license. I built my own multiple 7-figure small team. And then several years ago, we started the Listings Lab, which is basically teaching agents. There's kind of two parts of it. There's the marketing foundations to go from 6 to 7 figures with attraction marketing. And then there's also the, once someone is ready to the scaling, leverage, automation, growth side of it as well, so that they can build a multiple 7-figure lean team without necessarily having to work very much.
Right. So for your own, how you blew up your own business, what was that like, kind of going from when you started to growing, to these numbers that you were getting?
Yeah, I think a lot of it came down to looking outside of the industry and figuring out what was working in other, more advanced service-based industries, bringing it back into real estate and testing it. I think that the real estate industry as a whole tends to be like 5 or 10 years behind. Mm-hmm. We're as an industry pretty slow to adapt. So a lot of it just came down to what was working other places. Everything that we did was online. So, I'm very introverted as a person. And, when I remember when I first got my license, I was super young. I looked like I was about 16 and everyone was teaching me, you've got to cold call and door knock. And I remember thinking, if that's how I have to build this business, then this isn't the right business for me. And so I even right from the beginning, when Facebook was brand new, I actually started prospecting in Facebook Classifieds, which is now Marketplace, which would never work now. But it was just one of those things that finding a way to make things simpler, easier, and also more scalable has always been my MO. And so, a lot of it when it came to when we went from 6 to 7 figures, it happened over a course of about 6 months. Mm-hmm. And so it happened really, really quickly. And a lot of it just came from the fact that we created a system online to bring in business that was unlimitedly scalable. It wasn't reliant on time or effort or energy. It was literally just based around the more money you put out, the more comes back. And then from there came the more inbound type systems, the more attraction marketing systems that, from a psychological standpoint, take people from stranger to client without necessarily someone having to have every single conversation one-on-one.
Right. So when you were looking at these other industries outside of real estate, what were some of the industries that you really keyed in on to kind of model what you were doing?
So honestly, the coaching industry, for the most part, like anybody and any industry that is more virtual, that's service based, insurance, lawyers, there are people in each of those industries that are using more advanced marketing techniques. There are also the people who aren't, right? just like any other industry. So we looked at a lot of different things that were working in different industries and started to figure out, how are these people actually scaling their businesses? Because there's people who are making millions and millions and millions of dollars in these other industries. And, the ticket price is significantly lower than it is in real estate, right? So there's always going to be those two parts where it's like, you don't get to be the realtor unless you can actually generate the client. And there are agents out there who are absolutely incredible at what they do, but they don't have the marketing side down. And so they're not able to do it at the level that they actually should be. It's not like, it's not like, aesthetic type industries or things like that, where, if your work is really good, then your business will boom.
Right.
Real estate, there's too many of us in order for that really to be the case. And the general public really believes that every single one of us does exactly the same thing.
Right.
And so a lot of it comes down to people make decisions emotionally before they make them logically. And so we have to be able to create that connection and also train the people who are in our audience that we are the best person to help them through this life transition.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, when you think about a lot of people I talk to, it's, that referral base, and by doing the good, by having that great customer service, your referrals are going to come from those past clients and that, but that scalability is so much slower than
it's so much slower.
Yeah.
It's so much slower, and you have no control over it, right? Like you can't control whether or not someone has the conversation and whether or not they have the conversation effectively, right? Your clients are not salespeople. Right. So I think it's so important. And the way the way that I kind of explain it is, I see your repeats and referrals as the icing, right? It is the extra, it's the gravy, but your marketing is the cake. It's the predictable, consistent stuff that you can rely on, and you can't sustainably grow your business only relying on repeats and referrals, because then you never know what's coming in. Right. And you'll ride the market a lot more than you will if you actually have a consistent way to bring in high quality clients on a regular basis.
Right. So as you were getting started, and for other agents that are saying, my marketing dollars, I just don't have a lot, I'm afraid to take a big chunk of money, because we do see those mega agents that we know are pumping out millions and millions.
They're spending, sometimes some of them are spending more than they're making.
Right. So, it can be overwhelming to say, I'm going to take this big chunk of money. How do you get started? I mean, I know there's small ways to get started.
So absolutely. I would say initially, if you genuinely have no money to invest, you start on organic social media. And you start building an audience that way. You build the know, like, and trust, but it all comes down to, you have to become a really good content creator, and you have to actually genuinely understand what is it that people need to hear from you. So market research becomes really, really important, right? I think that's the one thing that agents don't do enough of, is actually do the market research. A lot of agents create their marketing in a vacuum, or they outsource it way too early to someone who's never sold real estate and who actually doesn't understand the mindset of the people that you're trying to attract. Too many people are treating their audiences like leads and not actually creating connection, conversation, and giving them we use a 9-point psychological journey to take someone from stranger to client. There's a certain mix of content that you have to learn how to create, and you have to do it well. So in the beginning, just like anything else, you have certain things that you can invest back into your business. You have time, energy, resources, money, right? And so in the beginning, if you don't have money, then you have to rely on the time and energy. Now, as you grow and as you create more business, the idea would be to reinvest some of the money that you make back into creating faster growth. Because if you're only investing energy, time, then you become the bottleneck of the business and the business can only grow to a certain point. When I did that big jump in my business, I just made a decision that I was all in.
Yeah.
It was, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it well. And I'm going to use my line of credit.
Yeah.
I had a line of credit. I decided that, because and this is just the way it is. Unfortunately, the world we live in, if you spend money effectively, and I use the word effectively because that's really important. There's a lot of people throwing a bunch of money at the wall and hoping something sticks. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about boosting Facebook posts. I'm talking about like creating actual campaigns that are going to have a tangible ROI. I mean, of course, I would spend $100 to make $10,000 all day long.
Right.
Right. And so a lot of it came down to, okay, I have this line of credit and I'm going to take part of this. I'm going to invest it in my business and really start pushing my business forward faster. And because I'm one of those people who I would rather be in pain for a shorter period of time than try to manually and slowly grow and compound. It's just my personality. But the other thing that I think is also really important is that most agents don't set their businesses up as real businesses. They see all of their GCI or all of their commissions as personal income. And when all of your commissions are personal income, then your business actually has no money and you're emotionally attached to every dollar you spend in your business. And so you don't, or you're a lot less likely to reinvest back into your business. People who treat all of their commission as personal income, in my opinion, have just created a job. They're not running a business. So the idea behind it is grow your business to a point where you can survive. Mm-hmm. And then have your business have its own revenue that then pays you as the CEO of that business so that you can reinvest back into the growth of your business, whatever that looks like, whether it's marketing, whether it's hiring, whether it's software. But you do that without the emotional connection to the fact that you're spending your own money or you're spending your family's money.
Right. So a lot to unpack there. Right. So the kind of two main points that I want to touch on. The first one being, you talked about that understanding your market and creating that client avatar rather than it being just, knowing who you're talking about, knowing who you're talking to and knowing who you're trying to attract. What are your tips for actually getting a solid client avatar to where the person that you're marketing to?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of things that you really want to think about. We don't teach niching down in terms of location anymore. Location was important before we had the internet, right? It was the only way to be consistent and frequent because you had to cold call, door knock, and flyer. It was the only way to stay in front of someone and stay top of mind. Now we have this wonderful tool that connects us all and that we're all on all the time. And so what we're actually able to do is spread out that location a little bit more, but actually niche down in terms of human, in terms of demographic. So, your typical ones are going to be upsizers, downsizers, first-time buyers, investors. We have people in larger markets that do like the LGBT community or corporate women or dog owners living in condos, something like that. There's two major things that you want to think about. One is, do you actually really want to serve these people? Like, do you enjoy working with them? And number two, and that kind of the number one goes along with, are they going to resonate with you? If you're 22 years old, you should probably not work with downsizers, right? Or like the senior market, because there's not going to be a lot of resonance that happens naturally there. Yeah. But then number two would be, can your market sustain, or is there enough movement from your market in that direction? Like, are there enough people in your market that are upsizing? To actually sustain your business? And I think sometimes people will be like, oh, well, my market's small. There's only, 5,000 transactions that happens a year. Well, You don't need 5,000 deals.
No.
Right. And so really it comes down to really dominating that one section or that one demographic. Well, it will never mean that you lose all the other business. It just means that you're going to get more of that. And you're actually going to be able to create marketing that truly resonates and speaks to and attracts those people.
Right. And like you were talking about, taking that kind of that organic type content creation and the marketing, when you think about that, any one of those client avatars, you can list out so many different pieces of content that you can start pumping out to them that it does become it. Once you know who you're talking to, it's very easy to answer all their questions.
It's so easy. And then you really just get to a point where you can be in your own head, or you can be in your avatar's head. And it becomes a lot easier over time. And the more you do it, to jump between people. 90% of agents are creating content for other agents.
Yeah.
Because they're so in their own head. They have their realtor hat on all the time. And I see people that are, they share motivational quotes and they're sharing all this stuff. And I'm like, this has nothing. No wonder 90% of the people who are following you are other agents. Right. This has nothing to do with your client base. You're speaking to other agents, probably unintentionally, but it's because they're going about things and sharing things and talking about things that resonate with them, instead of creating content for the people that they're trying to attract.
Right. Now, the other part you were touching on earlier was that whole idea of, the turning your commission into your personal income.
Yeah.
And I think that's 100% true. Like, if you are banking on every dollar that you make off of that commission as your income, you're never going to spend any money on marketing.
And you don't have a real business.
Right.
Right. Can you imagine if like the CEO of Nike every day just took all the money that they made, they didn't reinvest back in any marketing and any staff and any growth?
Right.
Really, most agents have just replaced their corporate jobs or created another job for them where it's actually not scalable and it's really not set up as a real business.
Right. So when you are talking with agents and that is something that you are trying to get across to them, what are you saying? Like, what kind of percentage do you try to get people to start out with when it comes to the marketing? I
mean, really, it depends on the market. It depends on the living expenses in that market. It also depends on where they are in terms of the scalability of their business. The less you can live on, the faster you can grow. Right. But not everybody, that's a personal thing. I was one of those people who was like, look, I don't need to buy a Porsche and a bunch of Chanel bags. I can take care of myself and live a certain way in the beginning so that I can get to a point very quickly where my business is scaled enough that I don't have to work 8 hours a day, that my business is continuing to grow and continuing to compound because I've invested in it wisely, both marketing, software, and humans, so that I have the luxury to soon be able to buy the Porsche, buy the Birkin bags, buy whatever it is that you want to spend your money on. No judgment here, right? But at the same time that the business has been taken care of first.
Right.
And that, my basic needs are obviously good, but that short term, I'm not even going to call it a sacrifice, but it's just that short term, that delay of gratification can create a lot of growth and can actually set your business up for success for like the next 20 years.
Right. As you've been doing this and working with these folks, are you seeing a lot of people I talk to, they're talking about the smaller, the team, not being this mega team, but being the smaller team and really exploding those small, 5 to 10 people. And really, is that something what are you seeing the trends with those? I
am a really big believer in like a really lean team. I think I've seen a lot of big expansion teams and mega teams that are really not profitable. If you are going to go that route, my suggestion would be to go very slow, because the right people in the right roles will create a tremendous amount of profitability and growth. we've worked with teams, and we have people in our teams in our program who are doing, $400 million a year in volume with 4 or 5 agents. Right. But all they do is the stuff that they're good at. Everything else is automated and delegated. Right. Those agents who are on that team that are doing $100 million in production a year are definitely not doing their paperwork.
Right.
Right. They're not they're not pushing the manual buttons. They're not updating the nitty gritty of the back end. They are purely focused on the things that are going to be their highest leverage activities. And there's absolutely no reason why that can't be done. I think that way too many teams take on brand new agents, and it's okay for years and years and years for that agent to produce 10 deals or 5 deals a year. And I think really that's where you get these huge expansion teams that are really inefficient, that cost a lot of money to support and maintain, where the production really isn't there. I'm also one of those people who, unpopular opinion, but I'm definitely one of those people who thinks like 50 to 70% of agents should probably not be agents. Right? Like if you're not really going to push forward in your business, then, leave that small number of deals that you're doing that accumulates over. Like I live in a market with 60,000 licensed agents.
Right.
Right. And really realistically, I think only maybe 15,000 of those people should really be selling real estate. And if we got rid of the other percentage of people and the handful of deals that they were doing a year, not only would the whole level of respect and the way that the industry is perceived, but also those businesses would rise. And I think as a whole, this industry isn't as respected as it should be because of the people who don't actually take their businesses super seriously.
Right. So for the training for the listing lab.
Yeah.
Tell me first of all, how can people find it?
Yeah. So we are pretty picky about who we work with, but I would say there's 2 major places where you could go. One is to download the guide, which goes through the actual, the Listings Lab guide, which goes through the methodology of what we do from a marketing standpoint and why. You can grab that at just thelistingslab.com/guide. The other place that I have a ton of free trainings, we do a lot of stuff for people, is my Facebook group. And it's just the Listings Lab method for real estate agents. I went live in there today, and we went through with one of our agents, operations managers. We actually did a live stream with him today and went through all of the basically the back end of what he's in charge of and the thought process behind the systems that we've built out with them. So yeah, we peek behind a lot of curtains in that Facebook group.
Right. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you talking to me. And I think, if somebody can get over, best way to put this, I think a lot of times people are afraid to give up some of that back end stuff. It gets it's nerve wracking. Like, oh, I don't know. This is the way I've done things forever. I don't want to hand that off to somebody that I don't know, or, so having the training and having somebody that kind of guiding you through that whole process, I think is very valuable.
Oh, 100%. And honestly, I have a coach as well. I've been working with him for, 3.5 years, and he says all the time, why would I want to suck at something for longer than I need to? He's learning how to surf, and he hired, he's like, I have a surfing coach. And he's like, and the reason behind that is that it's not fun when you're not good at something. So I would rather have more fun and invest back and invest into getting good quickly. And I'm kind of the same way. Even when we started the Listings Lab, we buckled down and we were in pain for 2 years so that we didn't have to be for a longer period of time. And we're able to really create massive results for the people that we work with. And there's no burnout. Not for me, not for anybody on my team. And everybody's really happy. Everyone's having a good time, and everyone is working in their zone of genius, which I think is rare.
Yeah. Great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Thanks so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
I want to thank Jess for joining us today, and I really hope you got some actionable tips to implement into your business and start growing it. So once again, if you think you or somebody else on your team has an awesome story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.